Our guest speaker today is Charlene Hicks, and her topic is Predictions 2010, What Can We Expect? The Reverend Charlene Hicks is an internationally known, certified professional astrologer, trance, medium, hypnotist, and healer for the past 32 years, practicing in Dunwoody. Reverend Hicks will follow up her presentation with flame messages and stand-up clairvoyance. Of the audience. She has been heard live on more than 250 radio stations throughout the U.S. and Canada. In February of 2009, she was contacted by psychic investigators of A&E Television for her work on the Julie Love case with the GBI in 1989. Some of her recent events: live Breakfast with Barry, 2010 predictions, The Bird Show, World Talk Radio on Angels to Guide You with Reverend Donna Bold. Please welcome Charlene Hicks.
All right. Well, today you're going to talk about the predictions for 2010. How many of you in here have had your astrological chart done? Raise your hand. Okay, so you have some knowledge of astrology. Basically, this year we're looking at some very interesting aspects astrologically that in my lifetime of 50 years I haven't noticed that 3 major planets have moved twice in 1 year. And Jupiter is moving 3 times in 3 different signs in 1 year. So I'm going to give you a little background, and then I'm going to start going into some aspects. But since I have the chalkboard here, which I love, Jupiter looks like a giant 4, Saturn looks like a big H, and Uranus, well, it's one of a kind. As of last Sunday, Jupiter went into Pisces. Saturn is in, where is Saturn now? Libra. And Uranus is in Pisces. Of these 3 slow-moving planets, Jupiter takes 12 years to go through 1 sign. Saturn takes 30 years to go through 1 sign. And Uranus takes 84 years to make a complete transit. This particular time frame, as of Jupiter going into Pisces, Pisces is a water sign. Do we have any Pisces people in here? No? Well, Pisces is a sign that is ruled by the planet Neptune. It represents the ocean. It represents hospitals and institutions. It represents healing. It has to do with, I believe, is the key word for Pisces. And the fact that Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system has now moved into the sign of Pisces, which it does once in 12 years. Jupiter has to do with expansion. It has to do with religion, law, philosophy, higher education, long-distance trips, traveling, people that don't live close by, expansion. So the fact that it's gone into the sign of Pisces expands all those things. And Pisces is a water sign. It rules the ocean. So with Jupiter in that position, along with Uranus, Uranus has to do with sudden and unexpected things without warning. So Uranus has been in Pisces for 6 going on 7 years now, and will soon be making its transit out. But in the meantime, now 2 planets are in the same sign. So whenever you have something like that, it adds weight to the situation. So along with that, we have, with those 2 planets and those signs, that means that this year we're going to be seeing changes in regards to hospitals and institutions, new discoveries, because Jupiter has to do with the superconscious mind and what the world thinks. So with Jupiter being in that sign, it shows new medical discoveries for us this year. It also has to do with things about, could be new discoveries in regards to the lymphatic system, because Pisces rules that as well. And that could be in regards to AIDS or hard to diagnose illnesses. Now there'll be some new techniques, new ways of treatment that we'll be working with this year that will prove beneficial. Because Jupiter is the planet, the best way to describe Jupiter, you can remember in Scrooge, where he has the ghost of Christmas past and the ghost of Christmas present, and then he has the Grim Reaper come visit him. Well, to me, Jupiter is the ghost of Christmas present, where he's really happy and jolly, and he has all this gold and all the food he wants to eat, and just life is just grand. Well, that's Jupiter. Jupiter usually brings blessings, and in the sign of Pisces, it is well placed in that sign, astrologically, besides being a Sagittarius or Cancer. Astrologically, it's a good position if you were born with Jupiter in Pisces. The people that will be benefiting greatly this year are Pisces people. Unlike last year, Pisces people had a really stressful time because Saturn was in Virgo opposing their sun sign. And I think astrologically, one of the most difficult things to live through is when Saturn opposes your sun. It usually means if you are married, you're getting divorced. Everything that you knew that was known and familiar is now going to go through a change and be taken away from you. It could be a change of residence, change in your marriage. People that have been in your life for many, many years, all of a sudden they're gone, or you move to another state, and everything completely changes. So for Pisces people that endured that for the last 2.5 years, now Jupiter is in there, and it brings a lot of blessings. It brings promotions in your work, recognition, increase in pay, getting a bigger, better place to live. Can mean an aspect of getting married or taking a world tour or trip or going out of the country. And for women, it could also is a major aspect for pregnancy. The other thing that Jupiter designates in the chart, which isn't written in any astrological books, but Jupiter has to do with expansion. It rules spiritual things, getting something bigger or better. So if it hits some major point in your chart, it represents changes on 4 levels: spiritual changes, mental changes, emotional changes, and physical changes. For a lot of people, when Jupiter transits the sun, it's an aspect of getting a bigger, better place to live, which can mean either A, physically getting a bigger, better place to live, or leaving the physical world as we know it, meaning death. And in the years I've been studying astrology since I was 11, I'm now 50 years old, the one thing I've noticed in the last few years is that when Jupiter transits your sun, it is an exiting point. It can mean exactly that, an expansion of the physical body. So you won't find that written anywhere in any of the books, but it's something that I've noticed in the years that I worked in the hospital doing EKGs, and the vouchers would have the birth dates of the individuals on there. The one thing I noticed most was that the 2 weeks before someone's birthday, their energy drops. The 2 weeks after, it's the highest it's going to be all year. Another book I wrote is called Why is Your Birthday the Most Important Day of the Year? Because the 2 weeks before your birthday, your energy drops and your immune system is the lowest it's going to be all year. More people get sick during that time frame or catch a cold or flu than any other time of the year. So it's the time you should bone up on your vitamin C and zinc, and don't hang around people that are coughing or sickly, because you're much more susceptible to it. The 2 weeks after your birthday, your energy is going to be the highest it's going to be all year. That's the best time to create any kind of new changes in your life. A lot of times if you're dating someone before your birthday and you're still dating them after your birthday, that's the permanent relationship you've been looking for. A lot of people break up right before their birthday. A lot of things end right before the birthday. So a whole new chart goes into effect on your birthday, sometimes the day before. It's called the solar return. And they recently have come forward and said in statistical studies that and this is what I've said for years, 70% of the people die within a month of their birthday. Men usually die 2 weeks before their birthday, and the women die 2 weeks after the birthday. And so they say there's nothing to astrology. Well, if there isn't, then why do so many people die right around the birthday, have more surgeries done during that time of the year, and experience the greatest changes? Astrology does have a great impact on our life, and this year we're going to see it first and foremost in a big way. This year, unlike last year we had a record amount of rain. So if I asked you, what do you think is going to happen this year? Anybody got a clue? Thank you. We're going to have more rain this year than we did last year. Records amounts. In places where it's never rained before or they've never had a water problem, they're going to get plenty of it, because Jupiter is expansion and it has to do with excess. It also is combining its energy with Uranus, which has to do with sudden and unexpected things without warning. So we're going to see a lot of places where they get a deluge of water. Well, they've never had any, and they get 12 inches in one afternoon, like we did on September the 15th when Saturn is Virgo. So this year, we're going to have even more, and you're going to see this worldwide. It's not just here where we live, but all kinds of places. And the most recent thing that we can look at as far as predictions go is Haiti. The astrological chart of Haiti, they just had a birthday, and sure enough, right after the birthday, they have what? An earthquake. So if there's nothing to astrology, well then, how does this stuff play out? So on the day that they had the earthquake, there was a lot of planets in the 4th house, and in astrology, at the time that this occurred, it has to do with the hidden side of life, but it has to do with home and the foundation. It has to do with the house of the mother. So the time that the earthquake occurred, there's a lot of stuff in the 4th house of home. There's a lot of squaring aspects. And when there's a square, it means an aspect of 90 degrees. And in astrology, there's 12 houses. There's 30 degrees to every sign. There's 360 degrees to a circle. And you always wonder about what is sacred geometry. Well, astrology has all that in your chart at birth. If we start with the natural zodiac, which is Aries on the ascendant, Cancer on the 4th house, and they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We've got Gemini on the 3rd. We've got Leo on the 5th. We've got Virgo on the 6th. Libra on the 7th. Good old Scorpio up here on the 8th. Sag on the 9th. Capricorn on the 10th, Aquarius on the 11th, and we got Pisces on the 12th. Last year, we had a bunch of planets, and a lot of people died that were born in the sun sign of Sagittarius. The Gemini people got it, the Pisces people, and the Virgo people got it. There's a big squaring aspect, and a square is a 90-degree angle, and it creates tension. So the signs that got hit hardest last year were Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Michael Jackson was a Virgo, and it hit major things in his chart. Then we had Ed McMahon and Senator Kennedy. They were both Pisces. They went. And Kwai Chang Caine, my favorite one, Mr. Sagittarius, he went. And then there's a bunch of Gemini people that went. This year, the planets are now going to be focusing more on cardinal signs. Saturn is now in Libra. And Libra, the cardinal signs mean change. Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn are dealing with the seasonal changes. The vernal equinox, the summer solstice, Cancer, the octogonal equinox, Libra, and Capricorn is the winter solstice. The people born in the first degrees of these signs are going to be feeling the effects of Saturn. And those people are the 22nd of March to the 1st of April, the 22nd of June to the 1st of July, the 22nd of September to the 1st of October, and the 22nd of December until the 1st of January. Those people this year are going to have Saturn squaring or opposing them, and Saturn is a slow-moving planet. When it hits that point, it forces you to do something whether you want to or not. You know, it could be a change of residence, it could be a change in your career, a change in relationships. But the more of you that are sitting out there that have lots of planets in cardinal signs, if you have lots of planets in Aries, Libra, Capricorn, or Cancer, you're going to be having a lot of changes this year. And you'll feel it, whether you want to or not. It's just going to be, well, I got to do it. Something's, it's got to have to change. The other signs that are going to be getting it will be Pisces, Libra people, Virgo people. But the most powerful people besides the Pisces people this year will be Libra people. People in politics, people we see on the news, the movie stars, the people having the greatest changes and moving into greater positions of power will be born in the sun sign of Libra, especially the first degrees of Libra, which is those born from September the 22nd to October the 1st. We'll see a bunch of those people in the news and the media. We'll see them at the UN negotiating peace. We'll see, and the other thing is, the fact that Saturn has now moved into Libra, but it will retrograde back again in April. Saturn in Libra, Saturn has to do with structure and foundations. It has to do with government. It has to do with organization. The planet Saturn represents the skeletal system of the body, the bones, the teeth, and the knees. And wherever it's found in your chart shows you how well you handle responsibility or don't handle it. And how many planets aspect it shows you how successful you're going to be in handling responsibility. And it has to do with the position of power in life. And wherever Saturn falls shows also hardships, setbacks, or delays, things that you work really hard at, and it seems to take forever to get there. But Saturn's a planet of testing, and it's really interesting. It has a twofold meaning to it. It can give it or it can take it away. If you haven't handled certain financial things very well in your life, and you're moving up on your Saturn going into your second house, if you haven't managed things well the last 30 years of your life or so, when Saturn moves into your second house, then you're going to really learn about money management for the next 2 years. Saturn, if it falls in your 7th house of marriage and partnerships, astrologically, if you're not married, you will be getting married. If you are married, your husband may go to another state and work there for 6 or 7 months. You're here and he's somewhere else. It's a separating aspect. So if you were married, it can mean testing the relationship or getting a divorce. If you're not married, it brings a permanent situation into your life. It brings very powerful people into your life, permanent people. So once Saturn hits, and you'll know where it hits in your chart, you'll be able to feel the impact of it. It changes things permanently. Saturn is like cement. Once it dries, that's it. There's no changing back. So the people that feel the greatest effect of it in the month of April till May will be Virgo people, the last degrees of Virgo. Whatever they haven't resolved in the last 2.5 years, well, it's going to come back around again in April. What they thought was finally finished and over with, it could be a lawsuit or legal matters from a divorce that they thought was done, then it will resurface and have to be fixed between April and May, and then they'll finally be done with Saturn for the next 30 years. The ones that we'll be seeing a lot more about, though, are the Libra people and their rise and the changes that will bring, not just in people, but in our life as well. The most interesting thing is that when Saturn went into Libra, which is on October the 30th, right after it went into Libra, I saw on the internet that Forbes was getting divorced from his wife, and that once he gets divorced, that would change marital laws as we know it. Libra has to do with relationships. It has to do with marriage. Wherever Saturn goes into a sign, it brings about changes in that sign. So the next 2.5 years, what we are going to notice is changes in the marriage contracts and what is expected in the marriage legally, what legally binds us. So that will go through a change. Libra also has to do with music. It has to do with literary aspects. And so we'll see changes in publication, how the artists, especially musicians years ago, had to campaign about the rights to preserve their written music. And they had to lobby for that. That'll be something that comes up again. So we'll see changes in that as well. But the other things that I wanted to talk about today, as far as predictive aspects, with these things going on, there's some major things to look for this year. Starting out as Jupiter went into Pisces on last Sunday, this particular month for us, I look back to see when Uranus was last in Pisces conjuncting Jupiter, which would have been 84 years ago, give or take a year. And it said that in January of 1927, that the coldest day on record for Palm Beach reached 34 degrees after the blue moon. What do we have in December? Anyone? Blue moon. Thank you. And so sure enough, after we have a blue moon and Saturn is in Pisces along with the Jupiter, we have the coldest day in Tampa at 28 degrees, and most of Florida is frozen. So there are cyclic aspects that these planets bring to us. That's one of them. And then the other thing that I want us to look at as we go into the spring, when we had the full moon in March, when it goes into Virgo, and I didn't bring my Femicin, I don't know the date on this one, but at that point in time, we'll have the moon opposing Jupiter and Uranus, and that could bring some changes, like Virgo is Earth, and the other planets are in water signs. So if I combine Earth with water, what do I get? Thank you. And what is California experiencing right now? Thank you. In March, when the moon is full in Virgo, and I think it's like the first week or so, I'll have to look it up. But when the moon is full in Virgo, Jupiter and Uranus will be in Pisces opposing that. And when there's an opposition is like this. Hold out your hand.
You're talking about the full moon?
Yeah, this is what an opposition is like. What are we doing here?
29th of March.
Pulling. She's pulling one way, I'm pulling the other. So when that hits an exact point in the chart, It's it's pulling something apart. It's an opposition, it's awareness, and it's stressful. It's not a fun aspect. So whenever we have a full moon and these slower moving planets line up like that, we can expect things to be moving. So if you go in Virgo, it has to do with Earth, and the other planets are in water signs and they're pulling at each other. But if you combine Earth with water, what do you get? Mud. So this year we're going to see a lot of liquids and things moving. Mud's one of them, but a lot of excessive amounts of water worldwide. And in places normally that probably don't even get any, they're going to be getting lots of it. So it's like, what in the heck's going on? Well, it's the slow-moving planets are now combining their energies, so things are starting to shift. The other aspect I want you to look at as we go into the spring, in April, Saturn goes back into Virgo, and it's going to be sitting there from April the 8th to July the 21st. So the Virgo people, if they haven't gotten anything finished up, and this will be the people the last degrees of Virgo, which would be like the 15th of September to the 22nd of September, those people born during those days will have things that are revisited. People they haven't seen or heard from in years will show up again. And issues that they thought were long gone and done with legally, they'll have to renegotiate or readdress certain situations. In May, from the 2nd of May, Jupiter and Uranus conjunct and oppose Saturn. So we've had a lot of rain, but we'll probably have even more stuff going on between May the 2nd and the 28th, with Jupiter and Uranus combining their energy. And a conjunction is when two planets come together as one. And they're going to be directly opposing Saturn at that point in time. And you saw me pulling on her and pulling this. It creates opposition. So the people that will be affected very strongly during that time frame will be the last degrees of Pisces, because Jupiter is going to move very quickly along with Uranus out of Pisces into Aries by May the 29th. So we have these slow-moving planets moving very quickly in and out of signs this year, which is something I've never noticed in such a short period of time, for them all to shift in sync with each other. So at that point in time, on May the 29th, Uranus goes into Aries. And in June, on June the 7th, we go from all this wetness and extreme amounts of rain to all the planets going into fire and air signs. So Mars will still be in Leo on that day. Uranus is in Aries, Jupiter is in Aries, and Saturn's in Libra, and that's all air and fire. So on that day, we could go from extreme amounts of wetness to have something exploding in the air, or solar flares that day, something to do with heat or something exploding at that point in time. Because Uranus has to do with sudden and unexpected things without warning. Aries is a very volatile sign, and they'll be combining its energy at that point in time, and there's a bunch of fire planets, so something will heat up. The other thing that I want to point out is the last week of March into the first 2 weeks of April on the planet, especially for us, always seems to be a very critical time. When the planets go into Aries, it's the warring planet, and when that happens, we usually end up having something explode, some kind of warring, someone's upset, there's some kind of trauma or stress created somewhere, and usually the first 4 days of April tend to be the most critical. Years ago, as Russia was about to invade Poland, then we had the Pope died, and from the 1st to the 4th, we watched the smoke come up, and then they actually had the funeral, and everybody from around the world was seen on TV. So this year will be interesting to see what transpires once again the first 4 days of April. That's a time where if you can be out of town, take a trip or vacation, that's a good time to be gone. When I used to work at the hospitals doing EKGs years ago, the last week of March and the first 2 weeks of April were the most stressful. More people died, checked in and out of the hospital. And then I thought, well, maybe it's just here at the hospital. And then I asked some other people, and here the tulips are up. It's really pretty outside. Well, Bob lost his job. Someone had a fender bender. My friend fell down the steps. I mean, everybody had something happen to them, a fender bender or something. I think, well, God, it's so nice out. Why is it so stressful? Income taxes are due. But when the planets go into Aries, Aries is I am, and it's me. Everybody's very me-oriented. And when you're out driving around, they're practically running you off the road because everybody's in such a hurry to get somewhere. So be mindful that the last week of March and the first 2 weeks of April, a lot of people, that's when they bring in new management. And they had the new manager there in January, but they implement it usually the first week of April. A lot of people get fired, quit, laid off. And it's stressful. But then there's a lot of people that are totally checking out of the planet at that point in time because it is the Easter, it is the new full moon of spring, it's a time of transition. So mark those days, and if you can be out of town and take your vacation, that's what I would do. Just leave. Go. Be anywhere but here. Then come back when it's nice and soft and the planets are in Taurus and people are in a nice, pleasant moon, which is right around the 20th of April. But the first 4 days are the most critical. The next aspect I want you to look at astrologically is June the 27th. On that day, it's a really significant day. The moon is full in Capricorn, and Capricorn is a cardinal sign. The sun's in Cancer. Pluto is in Capricorn conjunct the moon because it's the early degrees of Cancer and it's the early degrees of Capricorn. Along with that, we got Saturn in Libra and the early degrees of Libra. And we got Jupiter and Uranus in Aries, and we have what's called a cardinal cross. If the U.S. is going to have something out of the ordinary happening, this aspect should do it for us. I'm not affirming it, but it's something we need to be aware of at this point in time and start praying. Aries is the first, and then we've got Libra over here. We've got Capricorn up here, and we've got Cancer down here. United States is Cancer, July the 4th. At that point in time, about a week before actual birth date, remember what I tell you about the birth date? Greatest changes occur the 2 weeks before the birth date, correct? Well, it's right before the birth date for our U.S. chart. At that point on, the sun is in Cancer, the moon and Pluto are both up here in Capricorn, the first degrees. We've got Jupiter and Uranus and Aries, the very first degrees. We've got good old Saturn sitting over here in Libra. It forms a big old cross. And crosses have to do with change and some point of crisis. So the signs that will be hit really hard on that day are, of course, Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, and Aries. It could indicate something exploding or something blowing up, but it's definitely an aspect of tension. And something will be brought to our awareness on that full moon when the moon goes into Capricorn. Capricorn has to do with the government, structural things, our foundation. Pluto has to do with, can be crisis or raising the dead, but it has to do with resources as well. So that day, there's all these different planets pulling in 4 different directions. I can't remember in the last 50 years when we've seen anything quite like it, but it happens on that day. Then, for the remainder of the summer, Uranus and Jupiter will be opposing Saturn and squaring Pluto from the 23rd of July until August the 14th, 2010. And the summer is going to be interesting. We're going to go from tremendous amount of wetness all the way up until May the 29th, and then the planets go into the fire and air sign, and it's going to be dry. So we should have, now I'm hoping, maybe we'll have a summer like we did last summer, where it's not really, it's just really pleasant, like we're living in Canada. Well, peaceful. It could go from extreme wetness to all of a sudden being really hot. And we should, I feel like during the summer, we're going to have some unusual solar flares or some solar anomalies from the sun with this particular aspect. Then by the time we get into mid-August, Uranus and Jupiter will go back into Pisces, will retrograde back into that. And again, like last year, we had tons of rain in the spring and then tons of rain in the fall. Same again, tons of rain early. We'll get a break during the summer, and then it'll get rainy again in the fall. The biggest day that I want you to think about is September the 22nd. On that day, the moon is full in Pisces, the very last degrees. Uranus and Jupiter conjunct the moon, which this doesn't happen, but maybe once in 84 years, or maybe even longer than that. It did not happen back in 1927, so it was even before that. So it's been greater than 84 years that we've had 3 planets line up that close to proximity. And I did Los Angeles' chart, and I think it's going to be Los Angeles is affected, but there's going to be some stuff going on in lots of places 3 days prior to that and probably 3 days after. If there's going to be an earthquake or something out of the ordinary, it could be before the full moon or right after it. On that particular day, according to Los Angeles' chart, at about 7:30 at night, there's all these planets that line up in this opposition. The sun's in Aries, and Los Angeles is Aries by sign. 22 degrees of Aries, and the 22nd, who knows anything about numerology? What happens when it's a 22? Thank you. We had September 11th, and what was that? A master number. That was 11, and you add 11, 11, what do you get? 22. All right, on that day, and this could be affecting anybody in the world, but on that day, we've got Uranus. At that point in time, the moon is 27 degrees of Pisces. Jupiter is 28 degrees of Pisces. And Uranus is 28 degrees of Pisces. Almost one complete planet. The sun, Mercury is down here at 12 degrees of Virgo. But the sun is 29 degrees of Virgo at that point. And Saturn is conjuncting the sun out of sign, but it's at 6 degrees of Libra. It's sitting right there with it. Mars is in Scorpio at 5 degrees, which is water. Venus is at 9 degrees of Scorpio, which is water. So we have 3 planets here in water signs, and we got 2 planets over here in water. That's 5 planets out of 10 in water. And then we got Neptune at 26 degrees of Aquarius. We got Pluto at 2 degrees of Capricorn. But the thing I want you to look at is how exactly almost perfect this alignment is. And it hasn't happened in 84 years. It's been over 100 and something years, maybe longer since we've had this. And the last time I looked at this aspect was in 1986, and I was writing for the Atlanta Women's newspaper at the time. And I wrote an article, and it was considered controversial, and they were hoping I wouldn't do it, but I wrote it anyway. Because Jupiter conjuncted the moon in Pisces. And it was in September, and I wrote, could this be the one for Los Angeles? Because with Jupiter and the moon rules tidal flow, tidal wave activity. And with Jupiter combining that energy, opposing the sun, that would create an earthquake or a tidal wave or some kind of a tsunami or some issues with walls of water. Well, they did have a slight earthquake right around the full moon in 1986. But this time frame, whether it be them or somewhere else in the world, there's going to be a huge wall of water at some point that comes up with this particular aspect, because we've never, in my lifetime, I've never seen anything quite like it to be so exact. It could happen 3 days before, it could be 3 days after, or on that very day. But Los Angeles' chart, they have a lot of planets in Aries, and there's aspects hitting their chart astrologically. They also have a lot of planets in Virgo and Pisces, and that's why I wrote that particular story. So that's something on the 22nd that we'll be looking at 2010. And it seems like for us, there's always unusual things happening for us weather-wise in September. And once again, it was the 11th of September, and now we got the 22nd, a master number when this actually occurs. And then after that, for the remainder of the year, we have Uranus and Jupiter still in Pisces, which means more water for us pretty much worldwide. But out of all the aspects of the year, those are the most unusual dates that I thought would I bring to your attention. We can definitely do a lot of prayers on those particular days. But if I had to pick the number one jobs for this year, we're going to have all this water that I'm seeing. Plumbers will do exceptionally well this year. If you want to get a job in removing rotted wood from homes or a construction work and stuff, that will probably be like the number 2 job. They'll have a lot of issues. And 2 years ago, when I was here last in October of 2008, I talked about Saturn's influence in Libra. And I said that since Saturn has to do with structural things, Virgo has to do with gastrointestinal, and has to do with plumbing issues. That we would have plumbing issues, problems with the sewers, and that, sure enough, on September 15th, that came to pass because we had more water here than we've ever had. Looked like Hurricane Katrina hit us. We had the mudslides on 78. We had a part of 285 that no one could even cross it. And there was like hundreds and millions of streets in Austell and Marietta that no one could even, and the school was filled up. I mean, we've never had anything like that. In one afternoon, we had, successive days of rain, but it all came at one fell swoop. So these are some aspects we have this year that are actually greater than what we've already seen. So Jupiter, even though there are oppressive things going on with these planetary aspects, Jupiter always brings peace and abundance. There'll be really good things happening from the spirit world, greater communication, and also greater advancement in our medical knowledge, and also complementary medicine and things that are alternate therapies will get a lot more recognition, and the laws will change governing those things. So I'm going to stop now and ask you if you have any questions. Yes, but especially the one that is for, the first 4 days of April have always been really successful days. And then June the 7th, and then June the 27th. Those particular dates are key dates for greater activity. This country and worldwide. Okay, then that validates the same kind of things in the street. And they're already getting it. I mean, they've already had tons of forest fires to take out all the trees. Now they got this rain and there's nothing to hold up the stuff on the mountainside. So the rain is just washing everything on down. So it's like, I think the most amazing thing is I always think, instead of what would Jesus do, what would the Indians do? Would the Indians have stayed down in New Orleans? No. If the fishing dries up on the river, they move, the whole tribe. They move to a different location. But for some reason, we want to stay behind and think that it's going to change. So we need to read the signs around you. So what would the Indians do? Well, the mud's coming down the hill. We've never had this problem before. Would they stay there coastally? No, they'd move further inland. They'd move away from it. And that's what we need to look at. We get all these signs. What more do they need? So they need to address what they see physically. There are these warnings coming, but how well are they addressing the warnings that are coming? At this point in time, I think that'd be a really good thing. But it may, with some of these things that the American people are going to be seeing over the next couple of months, that really could push it in that direction. It's a piece of cake compared to last year, so it should be a lot more fun, opportunities to travel and do things that you didn't get to do last year. Lay in the back room from LA. And Saturn, with Saturn's influence in Libra, it means a whole bunch of changes will be brought about equality. So, the first thing I saw was Forbes and his marriage. If you're married in the state of California, the spouse usually gets half of whatever you have. Like when Amy Irving married Steven Spielberg and had a kid by him, he was worth $200 million. Well, as soon as she had the kid, within a year to year and a half, she divorced him and got $100 million, and that's why we never see her anymore, because she doesn't have to do anything anymore. And as it says, so it's state of California, and I think they've changed some of the laws down in Florida that you get to keep your homestead exemption or something like that. But sometimes it's different state to state, but that's something we're going to see more nationwide, that there will be changes in what is defined as marriage and marriage partnerships. Well, it must hit a specific point in your chart, because when I had to take the astrological exam, they put the charts they gave us. One guy had an exact solar or lunar eclipse. It hit one of his major planets in his chart. And nobody wrote down anything about it, but they wanted to see if we got anything, because they had done this guy's chart as part of our test. But usually when it's an eclipse, whether it's solar or lunar, it has to be within 1 degree of your planet in your chart, and you got 10 planets. So depending what planet it is, an eclipse means the ending of something. And I was told that if it hits your 7th house, which is the house of marriage and partnerships, wherever you have on this line over here, say you have something at 22 degrees of Libra, and the moon or the sun hits that point on an eclipse, it means, they told me that if you are married, it means the end of the marriage. If you're not, it means you're going to get married from the eclipse. So it has to be exact within 1 degree, which is pretty much right on it. Not 3 or 4, but 1 degree. Well, for him, if he's got all those planets lining up, that means a lot of success and prominence for him. So the change for him will bring exactly what he's been wanting. You can send me a letter. Okay, Charlie.
That's what I'm predicting.
Yeah, it'll be really good, because Saturn will bring it to him the way he needs to have it. Well, the difference between Sagittarius and Virgo, not knowing your whole chart, is to me, Virgo people are like Mr. Spock. Most of them like things in order and organization. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and it's an earth sign. So they're very practical and very pragmatic. If they're not really anal retentive about stuff at work as at home, they have a certain way that they like. If they call you up and ask you lunch on Thursday, you better give them 48 hours advance notice that you're going to cancel on Thursday because they've already got you scheduled in, and your commitment is your word. And so most of the Virgo people I know are very, very straightforward. They have a very specific way that they like things to be taken out. And cleanliness is next to godliness, and so they're really into order in their life and planning things. They're not really necessarily spontaneous people, where Sagittarius is just as opposite as day and night. Sagittarius, the battle cry is, don't fence me in, don't tell me what I got to do. And Virgo people like to be, the big challenge for you is, especially the Virgo men, they like to do stuff on their own, and it has nothing to do with, you're not out having affairs. They can be in the garage working on some old car and fixing the engine, and they can be in there for hours on end and have nothing to do with you or anybody else. They're kind of like hermits. They like to retreat and be behind the scenes. Whereas Sagittarius people do things spontaneously. You don't like to really plan things. You like to travel. The battle cry is, don't fence me in, don't tell me what I got to do. Ask me and I'll do it. So there's a part of you that really is big in expansion, and you talk to them about these different ideas, and you wonder sometimes, do they understand what you're saying? There seems to be sometimes issues with communication. But if you can explain it in a very practical, it's almost like having two lawyers having a debate. You have your way of seeing it, and he has his, and he's already got his mind made up. So you have to get him to think outside the box. So the challenge in the relationship is for you to help him see the bigger picture, where he's always focused on what's underneath the microscope. Okay, here it is. This is A, B, and C, and D, and that's all I need to deal with. The rest of this stuff is not part of my reality. It's not part of what I need to do today. Meanwhile, you're wanting to go off to some bazaar and wanting to know why he won't go. Well, he's already got his little schedule made up. So you have to let him know in advance the kind of things that you want to be doing, and that would help a lot in your communication skills with him. Well, it'll be a big day for him. If his moon's up in the 10th house, it shows his mother's both parents to him, and that he would have issues. Well, he'd have a job where he actually works out of his home. But for him, it shows a lot to do with communication. And Moon in Virgo is kind of hard, is a hard aspect. It shows issues with the mom. The mom could be very critical of him. But in this lifetime, even with that, he'd have a lot to do with the public, the general public. By day, he's one person at work, and when he comes home, he's totally the opposite. He could be Mr. Personality at work, and then he comes home and it's like this, and don't speak to him for the, yeah. Well, he just needs to regroup, and after he's been home an hour or two, he comes back out. But he has to have time away from that. He'd have a very public life, even though he's a very private person. And if you know that, that's how you approach him. Okay? Throughout history, and the time I've been an astrologer, I've been looking at my little ephemeris and looking to see what the heck's going on. When I worked at the hospital, and not even at the hospital, just generally, worldwide, there's always something blowing up. Someone's trying to take over some country. There's been something that explodes somewhere. But some kind of stress always seems to occur the first 4 days of April. Always. Whether it's here, it's somewhere else, you'll see it. It'll be there.
Regardless of the planets.
It doesn't matter. It's just that time. And usually it's because the first full moon of spring, we have the greatest changes with it. To me, my theory is there's more energy coming into planet when it's the first full moon of spring than any other time of the year. Okay. All right. If I call a name that sounds remotely familiar to you, say, yes, Charlene, I have a Frank in spirit, or I have a Bill, or Bob, or Joe, or Joanne. Say yes and raise your little hand. If you don't want a message, then you won't raise your hand or you won't give me feedback. But I work in voice vibration, so I have to hear your voice, and I may ask you to say your name for me so I can tune into you stronger, and that's how it works. I'm working with Little Flower and a night dancer today, and you can sit down now. You don't have to stand up anymore. Okay, we're out there. Okay. All right. As I'm beginning to tune here, I'm hearing, I'm being drawn, and they're talking about, I'm hearing a William. Who here has a William in spirit? Be thinking about your people in the spirit world. Be calling them in. That's what I should have told you. Think about them. Tell them you really want a message. Just Marlene, anything? Huh? Ah! Huh?
Can this person still be?
They can, but 9 times out of 10, the ones I'm starting with are people that are on the other side. In spirit? All right, there you go. All right, and can I have your name, please?
Leslie.
All right, Miss Leslie. You got some wax on yours, Leslie. On here, I'm feeling that he steps in very close to you, and there's a little dog that shows up on yours here, on your flame message. And they're reaching out to you with an awful lot of love and joy and excitement. And it's really cool because it's like there's like a spiral design on yours. And it means that, one, you're kind of like maybe some days you feel like a whirling dervish, but there's a lot of things coming up for you that are really, really good. And it also kind of looks like, you know the Kachina dolls where they're doing the dance and they're kind of walking along? It looks like kind of to me like an Indian guy doing a dance, walking along. And there's a lot of celebration. And there's a lot of like one foot's up, one foot's down. So there's like you're taking steps forward in your development. And it's really, really good. And there's like a lot of flowers being showered down around you from the spirit world. So they're talking about springtime is going to be a very happy time frame for you, early March, early April. And there's also a bird that shows up on here. And there's a bird that comes in from the spirit world around you, which is messages from the other side. And so they're talking about keeping a journal. There's a lot of information coming to you. And they're talking about all the things that you're doing are taking steps forward in a very positive and uplifting way. And to take yourself, you know, they always say angels, why do angels fly so high? It's because they take themselves lightly. So Spirit's telling you to do the same. Do the same. And William says he is here with you, sending you an awful lot of love. God
That's my
bless.
grandfather.
All right. God bless. Wow, it just keeps going out. Come on, Spirit. Does someone here have someone in spirit that would come in with a name that starts with an H, and it sounds like Haley or Hallie, but it's an H name. And I don't feel that this person was very old when they passed over to spirit, but it sounds like Hallie or Haley or something like that. Does anyone have a name that starts with an H that would be a female that passed in the spirit? All right. And this is hardly going here.
Someone that's passed?
Yes. Who is Haley or Hallie to you?
Well, I know a Helen, but she's still here.
All right. Do we have a Joanne here today? Do we have a Joanne here in the audience? Hearing that name being called too. Man, it's really hard to get this flame to work. This is not normal. So slow. All right. Say your name for me. That's right, you. Ruth. Say it one more time. Ruth. They're reaching out to you from the other side. And Ruth, did you ever have a pet bird at one time?
Not as an adult. As a child, we had one in my family.
But the answer is yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, there's a bird that shows up on yours on here. And the bird not only is your bird from spirit that's passed over, but also talks about flying. And the outfit you have on looks like you're getting ready to board a plane. But they're talking about you like to travel. You'll be doing a lot more. And the amazing thing is that this big blob of, wax that shows up on yours almost looks like kind of like a country. And if I look at it from this way, it looks like Italy. So, and it's kind of like the reverse version of Italy on here. So I want to turn it this way. And I feel like you've been to Italy, and I feel like you're going back to Italy. And maybe there's some other continent that looks kind of like that. But I'm going to go with Italy because it looks like the boot on this side. So the Mediterranean is calling, and off you go. They're also talking about where you live now. There's been some changes about where you live. And maybe you've been contemplating a change of residence. And if we turn it this way, it kind of looks like the state of Florida. So I feel like you're going to Florida and you have family or people that live down there, and that you may have recently come back from there, but you're heading back down that way. So you tend to go this year towards places that look like a peninsula. So that could be Florida, it could be Michigan, and then it could be Italy. But things that have lots of water around it, that's where you're going to be going. And Spirit wants you to know that it's lots of fun and excitement. And do you play tennis? All right, well, they're talking something about your right arm. I don't know if you ever fell on your right arm or something about your elbow, but there's like stiffness there, and I don't know if you have arthritis in that arm, but they're talking about some exercises you can do, and Spirit's giving you a healing today as you're sitting over there, working a lot on your right side of your body, because you're going to be going all over the place, and you're going to need lots of energy to be able to jump from one continent to another. But it's an exciting year ahead, and whatever paperwork and stuff you needed to finish up, it's done, so you're free to go. So it's kind of like you're the pilot for the plane, your flight status, you've done all the paperwork, the engineer said checked off, and you're taking off. So it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff. And I see you going to Orlando area as well. Is there anyone here that has a David in the spirit world that would be deceased? A David or a Dave or a Don? Is this David? And you have?
A very close friend.
Named David? And then the lady behind? Don, okay. Well, we're batting 1,000 here. Okay. I'm going to start with you. Say your name for me, even though I should know it by now. Brian. All right, Brian. Brian, you got some really interesting things going on here. One, the fun thing is that with the ink, the wax that showed up here, it makes a design on here almost like a little ladybug on here. And ladybugs to me represent good news. And at Camp Chesterfield, if you go and sit in the chapel, there's like ladybugs all over the ceiling in there, and we'd find them in the dorm as well. There's a lot of good things coming to you in the early spring and in the month of May when the ladybugs come back out. So it represents new aspects with your job, is what they're talking about. And David stands very close to you from the other side. But you also have a lot of winged spirits. You have a lot of butterflies that show up on here, and a lot of angels, as well as nature spirits like fairies in the yard. And I don't know, do you work in your yard when the weather permits? Do you have like a little garden and stuff? Okay, well this year they want you to take some pictures of it at the beginning, middle, and end, because you're going to find some other colors and things show up on your pictures that are not a part of the tomato plant and stuff. And it's like little nature spirits in your yard. But you're going to notice some, maybe you'll get a picture of a chameleon showing up, but some other things that have been there for years but you notice. But some other things will show up on your pictures, whether it be a digital camera or, a regular, throwaway camera. Spirit says they're working more with your mediumship, and it's going to be showing up in your pictures. And also you have the ability to draw, and they want you to encourage you to take an art class and to do some drawing. But your photography and working with the garden, the nature spirits, there's some really special things happening with you. But you have a joy guide that comes in as a ladybug. So your symbol is a ladybug. That's part of your totem. God bless. All right. And the lady in the purple, you had a David?
Yes.
Say your name for me.
Ruth.
Ruth? What's your last name, Ruth?
Nice.
Well, the cool thing about yours is not only is David stepping very close to you here, but it almost looks like you got fish on yours, or like, I don't know, dolphins, but you have a lot of aquatic-looking creatures on yours. And so I don't know if you've been swimming with the dolphins, and maybe that's something you want to do, but that could be very well something you're doing this year. I know if you go down to Gulf World down in Panama City, you can go swim with Sandy the dolphin, because I've done it. But I see dolphins around you, aquatic things. Maybe you go to Ocala and take the boat ride, and where you can see all the fish in the bottom. There's a lot of things about water around you this year that are really fun. You also have like a mermaid on here. And the mermaid's got, there's her tail, and she has this really pretty long flowing hair. And I think it's in Finland they have that little angel or mermaid that sits out on the thing. But also to me, when I see that, I always think of Hawaii. So I feel like there's an opportunity for you to go to Hawaii in the next year. There's a big heart on here as well. And David gives the heart to you. And there's also someone around you, I feel like, that's had heart problems. It's either been in and out of the hospital, and they want you to know that things are getting better for that person. And it also kind of looks like a T-bone steak or something like that on here. So I don't know if you've been not getting enough protein lately, but Spirit's telling you to get some more protein because you're going to be pretty doggone busy. But the coolest thing is the mermaid that's on here, and I really feel like there's an opportunity for you to go to Hawaii and work more with your healing energies, work with your healing ability, and there's a lot of new things coming to you, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone before the end of the year gives you a picture of a mermaid. It could come in a card. It could be actually a drawing that they bring back, or they come back from Hawaii and bring that, and next thing you know, in a couple of months, you're going there yourself. That is very strong energy around you, and I wouldn't be surprised before the end of the year you actually go there. But mermaids, read up on them because they're very much around you.
Thank you.
God bless. All right, I'm going to do one more. All right, you had a Dawn in spirit? Say your name for me. Patricia? Well, the interesting thing about Don is there's a hand on here. It's like reaching his hand out to you. And he says you're a very giving person. And he says this year there's going to be a lot of gifts coming to you. Just say thank you when they come, like free lunches, free dinners, you know. But he says there's a lot of things being gifted to you this year. And the other thing on here is there it looks like there's a really pretty bird on here. And to me, it's kind of like a twofold. One, he's talking about Turkey Day is going to be good. Thanksgiving is going to be really fun this year. And maybe you're seeing people you haven't seen in a long time. Maybe they didn't make it this year, or maybe you're going to go see them where they are. But he says you're supposed to be there, and if it's not here in Atlanta and you're kind of like, well, I don't know if you should go. And someone will even take you. Just ask them. But he says you're supposed to be there. They also talk about on here, it looks kind of like a bell, ringing a church bell. Shows good news is coming in. And whenever you hear the church bells ringing, that means that particular week, expect good things. And I don't know if you live near a church, or maybe you grew up a place, like in England, they have like churches all the time, and you hear the bells ringing, like the bells of St. Mary's. They're talking about bell sounds and like Tibetan bell sounds, church bells. But like from spirit, a lot of times you may hear it in the room, and there's no bells ringing, but you'll hear it from spirit. So you get a lot of stuff clairaudiently where you hear things. They say, know that when you hear the bells, that's it. You have a Tibetan master that works with you from the spirit world, and he brings a lot of bell sounds for you. And he wants you to know that the prayers that you've asked for, the things that you've been wanting to manifest are happening. And this year is going to be an exceptional year for you in a lot of ways with your own clairvoyance, your clairaudience, hearing spirit, but also opportunities to travel and see some people you haven't seen in a very long time. And I feel like that in and of itself is very healing, and they want you to know that they are very much with you and that your prayers are answered. Thank you. God bless. Okay. I am done working with the two worlds. Thank you for having me here today. If you have any questions, you can always ask me after the program. Thank you.